Hello, friends. If you've ever told yourself you'll start a podcast when you have a bigger audience, or when you have more time, or when you finally figure out all the tech, this episode is going to lovingly call you out and send you straight to the microphone. My guest today is Haley Hatcher of Heart-Centered Podcasting, and she is the literal reason this show exists. She walked me through every step of launching creatives on camera, handled all the behind-the-scenes setup, and let me do the only part I actually love, which is showing up and talking to amazing people. Haley does completely done-for-you podcast launching and management for creative entrepreneurs, and today she's pulling back the curtain on why a podcast might be the most powerful marketing tool you're not using, and how to make it work for your launches, for your funnel, and your community without burning yourself out. I'm Lyric Montgomery Kinard from the Academy for Virtual Teaching, a community of artists and makers who are teaching online. We're bringing creativity to students around the world, and you are listening to the Creatives on Camera podcast. And if you're just starting out, you don't have an email list yet, I've put together a resource for you called Your First 100 Subscribers. You'll find it waiting in the show notes. Hello, friends. I cannot wait to introduce you to one of my favorite people, Haley Hatcher from Heart-Centered Podcasting. She is the entire reason any of Creatives on Camera exists at all. So, Haley, say hi. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Whenever any of my clients lets me come on this other side of the mic, it feels like such a privilege. So, hello. I, as Lyric said, own Heart-Centered Podcasting. We do completely done for you podcast launching and management. I like to tell my clients, you record and we do the rest. And yeah, I love what I do. I've met some of the most amazing women and have got to be a part of their stories and the impact that they hope to create for their audience. And again, it's such an honor, such a privilege. I'm so excited to be here and to talk to you all about what a podcast could do for your business.
And I have to tell you guys the story of Creatives on Camera, backing up just a little bit. I have had this idea in my head for years, but
Hmm.
all of us solopreneurs, we wear all the hats. We're the chief officer of absolutely everything, or
Yeah.
chief overwhelmed person
Hmm.
in the business, right? So there is no way on earth that Creatives on Camera would exist at all if I didn't have the resource of somebody like Haley to help launch it. I didn't have time to learn all the things that you have to learn and do all the things that make a podcast successful. So literally when I launched this podcast, I hired Haley. She walked me through every step, which was basically, okay, you just need to sign up here and there. And then she actually did all the work of all the things. And then I just show up and I get to talk to the most amazing people and learn the most amazing things. That's always my favorite part. And then hand everything else off. So, Haley, talk us through a little bit. We'll get into the why of a podcast,
Hmm.
but I really love hearing how things are made, the process behind everything. So when we started working together, just walk us through some of the steps of what you did and how it worked.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of the times when I hop on the phone call with clients when they're deciding if they want to outsource their podcast launch or even their podcast management, they have, like you, Lyric, had this idea in their head for years of this show that they want to launch. And it sits on the back burner because, like you said, as the CEO of your business, you have 100 other things, other fires that you have to burn out every single day. And it's very hard to create something new and large like a podcast unless you have the time for it. Or on the other hand, they have made the time for it, but then they get into it and they're like, wait a minute, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm frustrated. This is never going to get out into the world. It's hard for them to be consistent. And so the idea that they had that felt really good at one time now feels like more of a resentment, and they either know, okay, I need to hand this off or I need to give up entirely. So that's the two camps where I'm meeting people at. And so when I talk to them and then I say those words, like you record, I do the rest, I think it feels like magic for them. But essentially, after I have brought a client on, I have them, give me access to all of the different tools that I need and everything behind the scenes that I need to make their podcast feel like them. But I set up their whole hosting process, and without getting too into the technical details and using too much jargon, that is just essentially doing the thing where I upload your podcast to one place and it's going to every other place like Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. So I do all of that. I script from A to Z my clients' assets, from their intro, their outro, their trailer. So all they have to do is show up to the microphone and read. I set up their website for them, design their cover for them,
That was the only
produce,
part I really got
yeah.
involved in.
Yeah, because I want your feedback, obviously. I want to
Yeah.
make sure, like, hey, this sounds like lyric. This is something that I would say. This is something that I feel comfortable
Yeah.
putting out into the
Well,
world.
and the graphic design, I go down that rabbit hole all the time. So
Yeah.
it's like, no, how about these 12 ideas for a podcast cover?
Yeah.
Oh, and the music. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also was like very particular about that.
But that's like such a good thing, like, yes, I brand this process as like a done for you process, but at the end of the day, it is very co-creative. And that is something that I like really pride myself on, is letting this feel like it is my client's process still at the end of the day. And, like you just said, where you might have had a lot of feedback on the graphics, or you wanted to see this, or you wanted to see that. That is like a really good point, because a lot of my clients, they kind of like get into this like analysis paralysis where they're like, well, we could do this, this, and that. And then that's where I get to come in and be like, you could, but how about we just do it this way? We commit to it and we move forward. And that is something that I also love to just help my clients navigate, because when you're doing something on your own, it's like very easy to get stuck in the weeds and want to make sure that everything is perfect. But like, I'm there to help you just keep the train moving, essentially. But yeah, after all of the back end stuff is done, then we get to producing your episodes. And so that by launch day, when your first episode is published, you already have a couple episodes in the bag, everything is done. You're not worrying about already trying to work on your next episode before you even got into love on your first episode. And you just get to be present throughout the whole process. And I think that's really important for, the success of your show, and for you to even like stay in love with the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of moving parts on the process, and you walked me through all the moving parts, but you also set up systems like spreadsheets to keep track of everything. There were just a whole lot of moving parts to keep things going, and I only had to insert myself in this one little part. And then also all of the marketing for the podcast afterwards. I bought the whole package, right? I just want to talk to people, and you do everything else. And you would create newsletters, you create social media shorts, and post them, schedule them, and get them in whatever platform I'm using. And it really has been an amazing work to see, looking back after, it's been about 1.5 years almost, how enjoyable this whole thing has been, right? And the main reason I know I don't have a ton of follow through for projects that get overwhelming where I'm not accountable to somebody else. Like, I'll never not show up for a class I'm teaching, but the podcast would have fallen by the wayside for sure.
Yeah. And I think maybe you can speak to this lyric, though, is even if there is that person, coaching you or helping you along, I think like there's that very fine line of where, oh man, Haley has like all of these things I need to review, or all of these deadlines I need to meet. But I try to like, again, make the process really flexible so that it never feels like that. So maybe you can speak a little bit to that part.
Absolutely. And the way we worked, I I tend to find my podcast guests in bunches. Like I'll go to a live conference or a trade show or something and just talk to a whole bunch of people and like, oh, this person would be amazing on my podcast. So I would schedule a whole bunch of interviews in bunches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you had them systematically organized on spreadsheets, and it was never too much to do. It was almost always, I get a notification, I have to go look over the show notes, look over the content that's being posted. And you know what? On weeks I was really busy, I would just click the button and say, it's fine, without
Yeah.
ever looking at it.
Yeah.
But if I really wanted to, I could go in, I did go in and make minor changes and things here and there. But it truly felt like my voice, my project,
Mm-hmm.
but you were carrying it along the whole way. And again, it's those systems. In I feel like this whole year has been about systems, getting
Mm-hmm.
systems in place that help things run smoothly. Your business should
Mm-hmm.
be a machine that you just get to turn on and drive and tweak here and
Yeah.
there. And without that machine, you're just scrambling all over the place. Um,
Yeah.
so we had a schedule and a system set up so there were regular tasks all the time as each episode came out, but they weren't overwhelming. They were
Mm-hmm.
spread out and, again, always flexible. Hey, by the way, we'll skip ahead for this one thing. If you are going to do a podcast, batch up your episodes and just
Yeah.
record a bunch, and you can get to all the rest of it later. But it makes
Yeah.
it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I want to speak to that too, like how you said, batching works really well for you. On that technical side, I would say too, and you've kind of already spoken to this lyric, like if you want to kind of DIY your podcast, first of all, I'm 100% in your corner. I think that is something that you can do if you support yourself in the correct way. And one of the ways you can do that, along with batching, is also setting up these processes for yourself, like Lyric has mentioned. So, for me personally, for me and my clients, what that looks like is using Asana. But if you are already in a project management tool that you love, whether that is ClickUp or Notion or Trello, whatever it is, that's fine. But put every single thing that needs to be done for an episode to be published, like every single thing, all of the little things, not just the big things like
Mhm.
record, edit, and promo. No, like I want you to have a task list that is, between 10 and 15 tasks long. And I want you to put due dates on every single one of those tasks. And then I want you to batch those out a month at a time, 4 episodes at a time, whatever your cadence looks like, so that you are not even giving yourself the option to get behind. Because if you're like me, you see your to-do list for that day and you are getting it done. And so now, just add your podcast into that to-do list as well.
Right. And it doesn't have to be really difficult. It doesn't have to be complicated. Um, I think I had a lot of features with my podcast that are extras
Mm-hmm.
because I had you doing the work for me.
Yeah.
Like we do a video version on YouTube. We put it on our blog as well as just on the podcast feed. And those are all extras that
Mm-hmm.
you don't really have to have. They're extra work, but it can be systematized and processed so that it isn't a lot of work. Now, um, also, you talked about DIYing. We'll talk about that a little bit later. You have a lovely introduction course to DIY your own podcast, and we'll make sure that that's in the link on the show episode. But let's back up a little bit to the why do people have podcasts? If I'm running a business and I want it to be profitable,
Mm-hmm.
why would I take time out of my schedule doing other things to have a podcast? What are some of the reasons why people start and what can it do for a business?
Yeah. So I think the biggest reason is your podcast if you want to use marketing speak, is going to be the top of your funnel, right? That is going to be where the free way that you get people to come into your world, and they are getting to know you week by week, month by month, whatever your cadence is. They're creating a relationship with you because your podcast is very intimate. You have someone in your ear every single week. You're getting to know them, you're creating a relationship with them, you're, increasing your know like trust score. And then it becomes really easy to create a whole funnel out of your podcast and create conversions from your listeners, whether they're longtime listeners or maybe they're newer to your circle. And so I think that your podcast should be the foundational marketing arm of your business. It is where you should be um creating all of your social content from. It's where you should be interweaving your launch calendar and talking about your offers. It's where you should be sharing your client testimonials. Your podcast can act as a medium for all of these different things, but you're only recording one time. And you can make your content as evergreen as you want or as live as you want. But there's just so many ways that your podcast can bring new people into your business, nurture those people, and then just be a lasting visibility piece for the work that you're doing.
Right. It builds your authority when you have something to talk about. I kind of started it mostly because talking to people is my favorite thing in
Yeah.
my whole business. And it gives
Yeah.
me an excuse to approach people and say, can I have an hour of your time and just pick through your brain and learn all the things I can that are in there? Because I find it fascinating. But fitting it purposefully into part of your marketing system
Mm-hmm.
is when things really help, when things really take off. So you talked about reaching new people. You talked about inviting people to whatever's going on in your business at the
Yeah.
time. If it's evergreen content, tell me about, hey, we've got this course running this week or this month. How does that work with evergreen content?
Yeah.
There's some mechanisms with the software platforms that
Yeah.
can make that really fun.
Yeah, so the easiest thing is using what is called dynamic advertising. And depending on the host, the podcast host that you use, my favorite is Buzzsprout. Shout out to Buzzsprout.
Hmm.
They have dynamic advertising built in, which means for instance, whenever Lyric was launching her masterclass, she would record a fresh, like an ad or promo piece that's about, 30 seconds long. And you upload that to the dynamic content, and it will go in and upload to every single episode that you have, either mid episode, beginning, or end point, whichever you choose. So that even if people are listening to episode 2 or they're listening to episode 57, they're hearing the same ad. And then when your launch is done, you can go ahead and take that ad out and replace it again with something more evergreen, like an ad for your opt-in or an ad for your membership that is open all year round, etc. And then another piece too that I think a lot of people overlook is if you are having past clients or current clients on your podcast and you're talking to them about the transformation that your service has created in their life and their business, etc. One thing that you can do is use that specific timestamp, create a reel from that, or you can even embed the audio player on your sales page. You can choose the start point and the end point of the episode that you want to embed. And whenever you're talking about the specific deliverables or outcomes that your client is talking about on your podcast, whenever you're talking about that on your landing page, your sales page, go ahead and plug that embed player in right there, because that is like instant real life proof of the transformation that happened because this person invested in your product, your service, your course, etc. So there's And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many ways that you can use your podcast to work symbiotically with your launches to help sell more. And again, like you just said, Lyric, create more authority.
Right. I'm sitting here thinking, I haven't done that. I've got a few testimonial videos that I pulled out and have on sales pages, but I haven't done it specifically with just audio from the podcast. That sounds
Yeah.
like something I want to look at going forward.
Yeah, it's really great. When you go into Buzzsprout and you click share episode, it will bring up the embed option, and then you should be able to type in there like share from, and then you put the audio marker that you want to share from.
Learn something new. Cool.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
gonna
it's
happen.
amazing.
That
Yep.
sounds so much fun. So there are systems and softwares that make it easy, and then systems and patterns that you can put inside your podcast that will turn it into an active funnel. You know,
Mhm.
for a long time, I didn't even think about it because I was just having so much fun talking to people. I'd, of
Yeah.
course, record a little outro or something saying, hey, come look at this thing we're doing right now. But if you can weave it in and have a content kind of pattern for your
Mhm.
podcast, it can be a more active part of your funnel. So if you've got a business and you've got students who've had that transformation, definitely invite them on and definitely
Mhm.
talk to them. This is an interesting question that we get not usually for podcasts. We're makers, right? We're artists and
Yeah.
crafters here. So YouTube is usually more of our medium of top of the funnel choice because we're doing how to, we're showing people how to create. And there the question is always, why would I give away all of this information for free? If I do that, they're not going to come and purchase my class.
Mhm.
So in podcasting, what is the balance and what advice do you have for people for delivering valuable information, but still being able to pull them into your ecosystem so that they become supporting, loyal, paying customers?
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to get a little woo-woo and say that I am of the belief that you can never give away too much for free. Like if
Mhm.
you I think a lot of people listening to this are probably identifying as heart-centered entrepreneurs, just like you and I do, Lyric. And there is like what is called the law of compensation, right? So whatever you put out into the world, whatever value, whatever service you are putting out into the world, that will come back to you. And I have seen this over and over again in my own business and in my client's business. Like, I'm literally up here telling you exactly the process that I use to launch my client's podcast, and I don't care because I'm like, someone's going to hear this, they're going to try to do it themselves, they're not going to be able to, and then they're going to come in and buy my launch package, you know? So first, that's my first thing. Don't get caught up on giving away too much. The
I
second thing
agree.
is when you are teaching, I still think that that's very top layer, right? Your teaching is just one of the things that you offer. And I think that as people get to listen more to you, they get to create that relationship more with you, the more of you they are going to want, right? So, like, man, that podcast episode from Lyric where she had Sarah on that taught me how to do this really specific type of print. Like, that was great. I wonder what else is available for me in Lyrics community. Let me go on and look at her membership and see what's coming up this week. See what's coming up this month. Who are the guest speakers going to be? Like, yes, I want to be a part of that. So like your podcast is the top layer, and then everything else that you offer is your exclusive content, you know? And you see that all the time, whether even if it's not through um even if it's not through makers or artists, like there's a podcast that I listen to that I absolutely love, and they have exclusive episodes, and I was wanting to listen to so much more than what I was getting offered on their free feed. So what did I do? I subscribed for $7.99 a month, and now I get access to all of their exclusive episodes. Is it any different than what I was really getting on the podcast? No, it's just more of it, So I
Right.
think that if you are giving your clients, or sorry, your listeners access to you at different
Mhm.
levels, then that would be fine.
I completely agree for being generous with what
Mhm.
you give, and that it comes back around. And
Yeah.
it's kind of podcasts are kind of like streaming music, right?
Yeah.
We listen on whatever streaming service that we're listening to, and it points out new things, and we find new groups that we
Mhm.
love to listen to. And then, man, if they are coming in town, I will pay any amount of money to go see them live, because that's a completely different experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, sure, we are paying for the streaming services. I wish the artists on streaming services got paid more. People
Same.
use
Yeah.
use Bandcamp or Qobuz or one of those that
Yeah.
actually pays their artists, that are
Mhm.
ethical. Um, but it's what goes around comes around,
Yeah.
and you do want to give people value.
Mhm.
You do want to. They can tell when you're holding back.
Mhm.
They really can, and they're
Yeah.
not going to come to somebody who they can tell isn't being open and
Mhm.
generous, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And I just think, like, I mean, Lyric, you've had so many amazing people on your podcast who they just have the best hearts, and I want everyone to win, and I think, like, the easiest way to do that, like you said, is to just continue to be generous with your time, with your knowledge, and of course, like, in a boundaried way. But
Yeah,
yeah, I just think that the podcast is just the beginning for a lot of people, and they become your fans. They become a fan of your work, and they want to support you. And when the time is right for them, that will be an easy decision.
right. It's one of those ways to intimately get to know people, right?
Yeah.
Now, there are things, people, if you're going to have a podcast, to not forget to do.
Mhm.
Do have those calls to action. Do have those invites to come see the community. Um, I should have been doing this a long time ago, but I'm very purposefully over the last few months making sure I have a lead magnet of some sort on every piece of long form content, so
Mhm.
that they become more of a purposeful lead generation list. Friends, let me break in for just a moment. This is exactly why I created your first 100 subscribers. It's a roadmap for art and craft teachers who are trying to build your list from nothing. It gives you clear steps and action items. You'll find it in the show notes. We want nothing more than for you to find the students who need the joy and creativity you have to provide. I tend to throw myself into things without thinking of them, right? And then as I experience it, oh, this would actually make it work
Yeah.
much better,
And to
right?
speak to that too, make sure that, just to use my analytical brain for a second, make sure the links that you're using are specific to your podcast. So, every time someone downloads your lead magnet, you know that it came from the podcast, or you can get specific and you can use specific links for every episode. So, you know exactly which episode it's coming from. Just like making your work more for you.
Right. And being able to follow that. We use UTM links, which
Mhm.
I actually don't understand in the slightest, but they are a way for Google to track exactly where that person came to your website from.
Yeah.
Um, so whatever it is you do, figure out a way to track that. I've done things like the video making crash course that we offer. When I went to the live trade show, I had a postcard with a QR code and a discount for the people there that went to a landing page that was a duplicate of the
Yeah.
usual landing page. It leads to the exact same course, but I know that everybody who signed up there could only get there through that event, right?
Exactly.
So whatever, there's all different kinds of ways to figure out how to track it. But tracking and looking at data like that, let's go into analytics for just a minute. Being able to track and see where people are coming from helps you to figure out what content you're providing that is actually useful, that's working for your people. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the easiest way to do this is to create you know what, Lyric? Maybe I should create an opt-in of my template tracking sheet that I use for my clients. But you're
You
going to
should.
create,
You really should.
You'll create a tracking sheet for your podcast where you're going to have like all your episodes listed, the date that they were published, and then whatever makes sense for you that you want to track. So some of the things that I track for my clients, and this is platform specific. So I track this in Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. I'm tracking like 7-day downloads, 30-day downloads, percent of consumption, which is how long a person listens to an episode. And then other things that might be more platform specific, like for YouTube, I want to count watch time or impressions or click-through rates, etc. So whatever makes sense for you to track, and then go in and actually do that. So create a task for yourself every 7 days, every 30 days to go and update that sheet. And you can find, like Lyric just hinted at, what pieces of your content are really resonating with your audience. You can obviously make that decision from which episodes are getting the most downloads. But another thing too, that people often don't think about is you can tell how long your listeners are actually listening to your podcast. So if you have an episode that is an hour long and you're getting on average, say like a 55% consumption rate, then maybe you know, okay, hey, I can hold my listeners' attention for 30 minutes. So I'm going to shy away from those hour-long episodes and try to cut them down to 30 minutes. So just things like that, again, to just help you be more informed and more intentional with the content that you are creating for your audience.
Right. And you go and look at what's working and do more of that kind of thing. Right. Because we as teachers, we as shop owners, we are serving the people that are our audience. And the more we serve them with the things that they actually need, because those numbers will tell you what they're actually interested in. I tend to ignore them sometimes just because I really want to talk to this other person. For me as much as other people.
And that's okay too. You know, like
absolutely.
I always say, like, these numbers, they're just here to inform you. They're just here for when you want to look at them. You know, I don't think that they should ever be the driving factor of your business, but maybe it can help. And for me, especially like looking at numbers sometimes, it helps like regulate my nervous system, because I'll think like, oh my gosh, why am I even writing this blog post? No one's ever going to read it, right? But then I'll go look at my Google search console and I'll be like, hey, actually, or my GA4 analytics, I'm like, actually, this is my blog is like one of the top performing things on Google. This is one of the top things that's getting people to my website. So like, just like that reminder of like what is actually working for you, that can help you as well.
Absolutely. It's a balance of both, right? Our businesses, because we're creatives, our businesses have to feed our souls as much as
100%.
we help other people, right?
Yeah, definitely.
What are some things that people don't think of before they start a podcast? Like, it's just a nebulous idea in their head. What are some things you find that your clients didn't realize they had to plan for or think about before they start?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, which I've already touched on, is just the work and how much time it will take. And so I like to help be realistic with them and say, okay, if you want to record 4 episodes per month, then you should set aside maybe 8 hours per month because you need to do the actual recording. You need to prep because I can't do the episode prep for you. I don't know these guests. I don't know your expertise and what you might want to talk about. So doing that and then a couple minutes each week to just like approve the stuff that my team is creating for you. So I think like that time piece is really something that I try to harp on. And then the other thing too is just let's map out what you actually want to talk about, you know? And I know that sounds like duh, but your podcast is going to be a weekly or a bi-weekly thing. And so you need to have the content ready. You need to think about, you know what? I get a lot of questions around this, or I've heard this person's name come up a few times, so I want to have her on. But if she says no, I need to have a backup on. So, just like really giving yourself flexibility with what's coming down the pike for you in the future. And then, let's see, something else too that I like my clients to think about is when are your launches and when are you going to take a break? Because again, we want your podcast to support both of those. So, you know, for example, with Lyric and I think the first one that comes to mind is I do not work in December. And I know Lyric is a mom, even though her kids are older, spending time with her kids in December is important to her. Spending time with family is important to her. And so we're both like, yeah, we're not working. So what are we doing? In Sep- in in September, we are starting to work ahead for December. So just
Right.
like things like that. Know the time, the content, and just your upcoming schedule.
Right. Anytime you make a commitment in a business like this, one of the best, most valuable and memorable pieces of advice I got before I started teaching anything was to protect your time.
Mhm.
That's your most valuable asset. And at the time, I was on the traveling quilt teaching circuit where we booked 2 to 3 years out. And they
Mm.
would say, my mentors said, if something happens, if you get burned out, 2 to 3 years is a long time to finish out your contracts.
Mhm.
So think right now, what time do you actually have to devote to the thing you want to do? Have a realistic idea of how much time it actually takes. And
Yeah.
because of that, I was able to very clearly understand that I could take very limited travel gigs. Um,
Mhm.
I'm not always good at following my own advice. Don't tell everybody.
None of
I
us are.
I do this. I do this with my businesses. Like every 4 or 5 years, like I pile it on too much, not having thought far ahead, and then crash and burn. And you have to recalibrate, and you have to decide. Okay, what are the priority things?
Yeah.
And priority things, yes, they need to be the things that bring in money so you can survive, but also the things
Mhm.
that feed your soul, right?
Yeah.
So,
100%.
absolutely, this podcast probably would not be anywhere on the list if it wasn't like literally my favorite thing to do is just talk to
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
so it's good for my business, but it's also well aligned with who I am and what I value and what brings me joy.
Yeah. And I'm sure too, like your podcast today feels a lot different than it did 70 episodes ago, or I don't know what episode number we went up
I
to
think
with
we're
you,
on
but
like 60 or something now.
yeah.
But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Um, so I think just like allowing a podcast is great because it can grow with you and it can be a part of your business for as long as you need it to be, and it is allowed to be very flexible as well. And so that is like another thing that I really love about this type of content.
How important is it to be really regular with getting episodes out there? I know at the turn of last year, I had a recalibration. It's like, okay, every week is a little bit more than I want to
Yeah.
put into it right now. I'm getting overwhelmed with time.
Yeah.
So we went to every 2 weeks, but it's a very consistent schedule. Yeah, how
Yeah.
important is it, the consistency?
Yeah. I don't think the actual timing is important, but the consistency is important. So maybe you start, like you said, producing a new episode every week. Maybe then you need to drop down to biweekly. Maybe then you need to switch to a season format. Whatever that is for you is 100% fine, but make sure that you stick to it and make sure that you are making it really apparent for your audience so that they know when they can expect to hear from you again. But, if you say, all right, I'm going to be dropping a new episode every Wednesday, and then maybe that's only happening every 3 Wednesdays, your audience is going to stop tuning into your feed because you're not showing up there. So why should they?
Right. Yeah, consistency, I think, is a good idea. Are there algorithms and things like that that matter for your podcast showing up in searches on the different podcast platforms?
No,
Okay.
no. Like your podcast will continue to show up. And the good thing too is your content, a lot of the times, I know we said earlier, is going to be evergreen. So even if you are producing an episode once a month, you can easily create 4 pieces of content from one episode so that even if you're not uploading something new every week to your host, you're still talking about something new every week in your newsletter, on your Instagram, on LinkedIn, wherever it is that you are. Like, repurpose the heck out of that episode and get all of the pieces that you possibly can from it, because that's just going to make your life easier.
Oh, you're absolutely singing my song. This is exactly, I mean, a 40-minute, 30-minute even conversation can provide you with video 4 or 5 minute clips and a ton of shorts. We've only done
Yeah.
2 per episode, but really
Hmm.
we could do 5 or 6 or 7. And then
Yeah.
all the newsletters and blog posts and everything. So leverage every piece of content you do in as many places. It's again, that's one of the parts of the machine, the
Yeah.
system. You put in this amount of time, but it floods into all of the different places, so you're not having to create new things for all of those places.
Yeah. Definitely. 100%.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Haley, you're just one of my favorite people. This has been so much fun to actually have you on
Yeah.
the podcast that you have helped me build. You've been an
Yeah.
indispensable part of the process.
Thank you. Wait, Lyric, there's one thing I want to say though, that we
Yes.
didn't touch on. So, one objection that a lot of people have, especially which I know a lot of your audience listeners are small business owners themselves. And so they might say, I only have 500 followers on Instagram, or I only have 30 subscribers on YouTube. Like, should I even do this podcast? And yes, my answer is unequivocally yes every time, because your podcast, even if you're getting, I don't care if you're getting 25 downloads per episode, because when is the last time that you went into a room and 25 people were there just to listen to you and only you for an hour? Probably not in a very long time. And these people are doing that every single week. They are tuning in to you with their undivided attention every single week. And that will just grow, that will multiply. And there is something so intimate and so special about having a small audience. I like to use this example. I've had multiple clients who they have maybe only they average 50 downloads per episode, but they have people buying their $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 coaching packages, and they have never even talked to this person before, but they're like, I've listened to your podcast every single week for a year. So, and
Yeah,
that's one person.
exactly. Even if you're starting new and don't have the audience yet. This is the place where you build it.
Yes.
It's a long game. It's, again, we talked about the top of the funnel. It's the wide reach where you eventually pull in the people who are going to get to know
Grow
you
with you.
and grow with you and then stick with you and come in when you have things to offer. It's a beautiful system. I really do love it.
Yeah. So don't come at me with that objection because it's not going to work. You're going to have to find something different.
Yep. Same always. You start where you are and you get out there, whether you have 10,000 people in your audience already or 5.
Yep.
You start delivering. And as you deliver, instead of waiting until you have the audience before you deliver, as you deliver, your business grows.
Definitely.
Haley, let me ask you one fun question.
I already know it's coming.
I know, because you edit all the podcasts. What is the last thing you made?
Okay, so last night I made a new pasta dish and it's very simple. Everyone, please go try it. It is just elbow macaroni, Alfredo. If you're ambitious, you can make your own, but I just bought it at the store. And then I cut up some Italian sausage, zucchini, and spinach. Throw that all together. It is so good. I just had leftovers for lunch, and I think I'm going to make it again very soon.
That does sound good. Pesto. I'm thinking pesto would be so good at pasta. Now I'm hungry.
Yeah. Well, I guess you have to go have a snack now.
I guess I do. Haley, thank you so much for taking time to share your wisdom and your knowledge with our audience.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me here. Everyone, if you're listening, I am in your corner. Get that podcast out into the world.
Where can they find you?
Yes, you can find me at Heart Centered Podcasting on Instagram and on LinkedIn. And my website should be in the show notes. I send out a newsletter every week that I'm super proud of, and I would love to have you join my subscriber list.
Yeah, and like I said, she has a great short DIY course for and it's all podcasts. It's all very short podcast episodes that you get to just listen to and learn and see if this is something you want to do. I encourage you all to try it out. Podcasting is really fun. I think you would love it.
Not that we're biased or anything, but it is really fun.
Of course not. Well, again, thank you, Haley. It has been a delight.
Yep.
Friends, I hope this conversation lit something up for you because it certainly did for me. Haley reminds us that you can never give away too much, that the law of compensation means your generosity always comes back around. I believe this is something every creative teacher needs to hear and believe. You can find Haley on Heart Centered Podcasting on Instagram. Her website and that resource I mentioned is in the show notes. Sign up for a newsletter there too. And if you're just getting started as an art or a craft teacher, make sure to download the free resource I have for you, your first 100 subscribers. Your email list is your most dedicated students. They are the people who will buy from you. And this helps you go from no email list at all to people who have invited you in. Those are the people who will buy your workshops. And as always, your comments and your reviews mean the world to us. Help us get this out to as many people who need it as possible. You, my friends, make the world a better place. Never stop creating.